What's up, everybody? I am back with another movie review, and today I will be covering the 90s classic Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I knew they had like a great, like at least the core cast is like, memorable characters, but I forget who were like bit parts and uncredited characters from actors who are big deals today. Now, of course, I already know who like is the big, name guy who created Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Josh Whedon. And yes, we all know this guy is a huge D-bag. However, he does make, incredible stories and iconic characters. We cannot take away from him, such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which later on become a well-renowned TV series that also had a spin-off of Angel. Now, I've seen a fair bit of the Buffy TV show, but I was also at least primarily a avid watcher of Angel, which, I'm not a huge fan of the whole cliffhanger final season, because I think they had like a comic filling in like an epilogue of what happened after that part. However, big facts here. The Buffy character had this like plethora, like well over 300, novels and then the comics, and of course there's I'm pretty sure a video game. I'm not sure. It was like a side scroller kind of thing. So like Buffy has like sprung a whole saga beyond just the movie and beyond just even the TV show. So and like I'm a huge fan of Buffy, and primarily because she is one of those characters which I keep forgetting to put her in the same category like Xena, like Sarah Connor, like Ripley, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is, should be in the crown jewels of female lead protagonist that is not a girl boss. Even during the TV series when that was airing, mostly because of Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is just phenomenal, and just like Christy Swanson, is primarily, well, I won't say primarily, I think either people recognize Sarah as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think that's mostly, but also Daphne Blake from the live action Scooby-Doo, the first two Scooby-Doo films, which they did other live action Scooby-Doo stuff with other new cast of people, but however, the first two Scooby-Doo films, which was directed by James Gunn, who I understand he's getting older, but I don't know if he's just like leaning too far into his lily white face, because Ben Stiller is in the exact same boat. Like, dude, y'all not that freaking old. Why y'all sitting there like, going full Santa Claus? Whatever. I'm getting off a tangent here. However, I think like the first two Scooby-Doo films, the actors who play Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Fred, they're primarily recognized, for those characters because they did so freaking well. But like I said, I'm getting off tangent here. But the point is, the Buffy character is just renowned as in like the pinnacle of hardcore like very well done, very well layered, fleshed out character that is beloved by both men and women. Okay, and because they followed the formula of the hero's journey, which is going to stand the test of time. You don't think Riri Williams will stand the test of time compared to somebody like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Xena Warrior Princess? Heck no. But anyway, this was directed by Fran Rubel Okuzi. Stars Christy Swanson as Buffy Summers. The late Donald Sutherland plays Merrick Smythe. The late Paul Rubens plays Emmeline, the vampire henchman. Rucker Howard, the late Rucker Howard. So a lot of these people on this casting list is no longer with us. One of which is part of more tragic. Rutger Howard plays Lothos, the main vampire. We got the late Luke Perry, who plays Oliver Pike. Michelle Abrams as Jennifer. Hilary Swank, crazy. Hilary Swank was in this as Kimberly Hanna. Paris Vaughn as Nikki. David Arquette, I didn't even remember he was in this at all. A lot of these people look super young. And of course, it was back in the 90s, and I forgot the whole thing about the lingo that was used back then. But it was such a simpler time in the 90s. Even in the early 2000s, it was such a simpler time. Oh, God, I miss those days. He plays Benny Jacks. Randall Bendekoff as Jeffrey Kramer. Andrew Laurie as Andy. Sasha Jensen as Grueler. Stephen Root as Principal Gary Murray, who, in my personal opinion, is part of the low on the totem pole in terms of characters that I cared anything about. It's even lower than the bitchy little friends that Buffy has. Natasha Gregson Wagner as Cassandra, Candy Clark as Buffy's mom, and Thomas Jane as this guy Zeph. It's crazy. But we get uncredited roles from Ben Affleck as a basketball player in one of the the basketball games, Ricky Lake as Charlotte, Seth Green as a vampire, and Alexis Arquette as vampire DJ. Crazy. Oh, I didn't even know there's Alexis Arquette is a transgender activist. Wow. Things definitely changed. Oof, wow. And get this, which I didn't even realize. This movie had like a budget of $7 million. And at the time, the box office, it more than made double its money. Because it was, mixed reviews from critics, but like people, I guess, it became super popular. It was like a big hit in the 90s. But anyway, so the movie begins where we're introduced to Buffy Summers, who seems like an average LA girl going to high school, has like a boyfriend, and she's super popular league cheerleader with a boyfriend who's like, the star basketball player. Typical teen stuff, generally in the 90s. And then weird stuff started happening, people going missing or dying. And then this mysterious man shows up named Merrick, who Buffy encounters, and he is explaining that she is a chosen one, a slayer, and to prove that, he reveals about have you been having mysterious dreams of this mysterious man and being different types of women in different eras of history? And do you have certain cramps when certain strange things are happening? This, gets her attention, and he further proves this by taking her to a graveyard, and she witnesses people rising from the graves as vampires that she and Merrick had to stake in the heart. And he explains to her that she is a slayer, which is pretty much like a not only kind of like a reincarnation thing, like an avatar, but also as a mantle passed down from young girl to young girl. And he is a watcher whose job it is to train her and guide her while he's taking on vampires. Now, this kind of spun off into a different thing once it gets to a TV show where we got a different watcher named Giles, who helps her fight off other different type of supernatural threats. Like, if you've seen the TV show, you know how it goes. Anyway, and of course, he explains that a slayer's life isn't like long lasting. Even in the TV show, we've seen like different episodes with clips of different slayers in different eras in the past, and they all died, pretty young. They never reached at a particular ripe old age, because it's like a passed down thing. Once a slayer dies, it has to find pretty much the source of the power has to find like a new young woman. Now, Merrick mentions that she hasn't been properly trained, and he should have been there while she was growing up so she can be at her prime and blah 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 blah. And I'm thinking like, okay, dude, where you clearly was dropping the ball on your duties, which is another thing where the watcher, every time he dies, a new one takes up is born and takes up the mantle. He's pretty much kind of like starting over every time. But it's just like, okay, bro, where were you when she was supposed to be young and you were supposed to properly train her? She's well into her teens. She was like what, like a junior or a senior? Well, I'm pretty sure she's like a freshman. I'm not sure, because the TV show, she's been in high school for a while because she had to move. If you know the lore, the original high school kind of like accidentally burned down, and she ends up moving to the different school that we saw in the TV show. And she seems like she's been in high school, at least, like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen the show. So I'm not sure when the show started, if she was a freshman or continuing her freshman year, or starting in the show as like a sophomore, because I'm not sure what grade she is in the show. I'm sorry, in the movie. So I think Whedon's probably playing fast and loose with that. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been a long time. Anyway, so we meet Pike with his friend Benny, who are seniors who are always kind of liquored up, and they work for this mechanic and everything like that. They always wasted. But one night, while completely wasted, Benny gets taken and by Emerlyn, and he's bitten and changed into a vampire. And this part was kind of weird because the Watcher is supposed to be like a skill that killing the undead in his own right, slowly kind of creeps up as he is literally right there, moseying on into the scene as Amaryllis grabs and takes Benny, and he just walks up and just pours over, looks over, and then just picks up a Pike off the ground to take him to safety. And I'm thinking, like, dude, where's your sense of urgency? Run over there and deal with the. There's only one vampire. You mentioned in a different scene later on. And it's like, oh, it's easier to kill one vampire. Well, there's one vampire. Dude, go over there. You keep a stick in your long trench coat. Deal with this dude. What are you doing? You just let a kid get freaking munched on. You're horrible at your job. I was like, oh my god, rewatching it. I was like, oh my god, that was terrible. This is weird. Oh, God. It's been a long time since I've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. And looking back on it, it's like, oh my god, that's like crazy things some of these characters are doing. Anyway, we see that Amaryllis has been taking certain folks, trying to increase his master's coven, and all the while Merrick is training Buffy in the ways of killing vampires. And of course you get like cool montage, but Buffy still wants to have like a normal life, but Merrick says she has to like nix all that, because killing the undead, you gotta probably train for this kind of stuff. You ain't got time to worry about all this like frivolous stuff. But like I said, this is the whole hero's journey. There's like a part about like denying the quest or mission and stuff to get back to the way how the character started, where it seems everything is normal and then the crazy was going on. But now that she in this world that she wasn't privy to, she can't unsee it at this point. She's in it at this point, and she becomes very good at it. And she gets forms a friendship between her and Merrick, and she tells her that after she's done with high school, she wants to be a buyer. Now, once again, this is written by Joss Whedon. And of course, this is like early Joss Whedon, so maybe he hasn't fine-tuned his writing skills just yet. But the fact that he literally has Merrick ask her buying what, and she's like, I don't know. I heard it one day, and it just sounded cool. And no, because Joss Whedon comes from a background. I think his father was like comes from old Hollywood or something like that. So it was easy for him to get into this industry. So I doubt there was people around him willing to tell him no or correct certain things. I'm not sure what the case may be back, in like the late 80s, like 89, when I'm sure the script was being written or something like that, before it actually, 89 or 90, when the script was being, written and fine-tuned or whatever, before it's actually gotten to, film production. But somebody should have look at that part and say, bro, this doesn't make any sense. It could have gave her any profession that she wanted to do that probably would fit the nature of the character. Anything in the world. Uh, I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe she wanted to, I don't know, fashion designer. I'm throwing it out there, because she doesn't. Yeah, she likes her fashion, but she ain't like, Emma Stone, Cruella DeVille love fashion kind of girl. But I don't know, just something that fits. Something innocuous, some throwaway, like she wants to write or something. I'm not sure. It's just something that you can just throw out there. You don't have to really commit to it, but it just seems like something as bland as, I just want to buy her. That's like to buy stuff. I don't know. You could have said she could have be into like art or something. I don't know. It's just buyers seem so lazy. That part was confused me. Anyway, one night, she and Merrick saves Pike because after Pike, wakes up in his house one day and Benny, now changed into a vampire, is floating around outside his window. And his reaction, now I know it's the 90s, it was like more cool to be all chill and broy about kind of stuff, but people don't react to certain things sometimes that requires a particular reaction. Like, I know he's probably waking up from a drunken stupor or something like that, so he's probably a little hungover. But smartly, he didn't let his friend in. But at the same time, after because we all waking up, just in the throes of brains, trying to catch up with reality after you just waking up from a long sleep, and he's still collecting himself. But the moment you realize your friend not only has fangs and is paler than a ghost and has bat ears, he's also floating outside of your 2-story apartment. Your reaction should be more of a freak out than more so than the attitude of you're harshing my buzz. It just seems like, it's a weird reaction. Anyway, as the next day, Pike decides, okay, I'm working the last shift at the mechanic's job because the boss took notice that he hasn't seen Benny in a couple of days. Pike says, look, I'm gathering my stuff, I'm packing my things, I just want to make sure I get my last check so I can get out of this town because things getting weird here. And if you see Benny, I would advise you to run, dude. So he's trying to haul ass out of there, but I don't know why he went to freaking sundown before he decides to. I know he got work at the end of his shift, but you would think, okay, dude, I'm gonna get out around maybe 3 p.m. because it will be long enough for still daylight, and by the time I head out of town, that's when sundown is supposed to be hitting. I mean, I'll be like probably, on the highway by the time the sun's starting to set. Long past, the city of Los Angeles would be like hour behind me. But no. He then getting ambushed by vampires once his vehicle stalled out, which is another thing. Like, dude, you knew you was going to be heading out of town. Why did you make sure the earliest convenience to make you're at a freaking mechanic shop? Why did you not make sure that your vehicle is in top-notch condition because you know you're gonna be hauling ass later in the day. That is stupid. That could have been better written to make sense, but it just makes him look like an idiot. It's like a mechanic didn't make sure his own car is in good condition for him to leave when he plans on leaving. Ugh. And then you get ambushed by vampires, but luckily by Deus Ex Machina, Buffy and Merrick shows up and kill off some vampires, and Emerlyn getting his arm chopped off and he leaves, which, you know, it won't be until the Blade film, which ironically, you know, didn't the Blade film come out the same year? Because it's in 90. No, Blade came out in 94. Well, say like, yeah, didn't it come out in the same year? No, Blade came out in 94. No, 1998. My bad. So yeah, 6 years later, Blade will come out. Because I'm thinking like, you know, vampires would be able to kind of regenerate, you know, lost limbs once they, you know, consume enough blood, you know, get the powers, you know, going again to properly regenerate. Slow process, but we see from another vampire henchman in the Blade film, Zero to regrow his arm slowly but surely, you know, through the course of the film. And of course, different directors, different writers, but it would make sense that they have a capability of regenerating outside of getting their head cut off or hearts destroyed. Pike and Buffy starts to form a connection because the whole bad boy Luke Perry deal, and this is 90210 era of Luke Perry, which was every millennial girl's little crush, right along with like the Robin Hood Fox and crap. I did a review of it earlier this month. Labyrinth, David Bowie's Goblin King, right up there for a lot of young girls. But when chasing, you know, after one of the guys who's on the basketball team gets turned into a vampire, shows up at the basketball game, vamped out. Buffy sees him, chases after him. He runs to an abandoned kind of like amusement park where Pike sees her, you know, goes after her to back her up. Sees Lothos for the first time. He puts her in a trance, which you would think Merrick would probably prepare her for something like that, knowing what she'll be up against, because vampires, one of their keen abilities is hypnotic suggestion. Kind of want to make sure that you hammer that in the lesson plan, Merrick. Like I said, he's terrible at his freaking job. But he tried to come in after this, you know, dialogue he had in a previous scene to her about how he's a watcher. As many times he's probably seen Slayers go out tragically, he's not to interfere with their mission. But after this short period of becoming friends with this version, which is like you never been friends with the other ones, and it's like what kind of like relationship you had with the previous ones where you just didn't feel, because you said you felt something like you wanted to step in but you knew you couldn't, so you had to tragically watch them go out but you want to step in on this particular one. Why? It's like you think that you probably have like a decent length of time to form a connection with the previous Slayers by comparison to Buffy, who only had like a shorter amount of time, but you just felt like I just got to step in on this one. So unfortunately, he came in, tries to prevent Lothos from biting her. He ends up getting staked in the heart himself and dying, while Lothos and Berlin leave. Of course, he's sad, but this deters her from a mission because he realizes, okay, this, no pun intended, the stakes are high. But she just want to go back to her normal life. Like, she lost a dear friend, which is another thing that America probably should have, like, drilled into her head. It's like, you're gonna lose people. This is not like a, this is worse than being a cop. Because even with them, they will more than likely lose people on the job. This is people fighting against vampires who are apex predator monsters, and you would definitely lose people, even your own life. So that's like, you probably should properly prepare for something like this, especially mentally and emotionally, because this probably will be scarring to a lot of people. If you watch the TV show, Buffy really goes through the ringer. Not to saying you can't, you ever become numb to it per se, but it's just that it's the kind of thing that you gotta at least be aware that it will happen. It's not gonna be a total shock. But anyway, she tries to shirk her responsibilities, despite Pike's suggestions she don't. But she tries to go back to her normal life, go to this dance, even though she tried to confide in her supposed friends. But it's kind of like, I guess it's a sort of way come of age story for Buffy, where her friends who she thought was close friends are shallow little bitches like she was previously, but now she kind of had to, be forced to grow up, especially considering that she realized the dangers of as Blade would call it, another world that she can't unsee. She sees things that average people kind of glance over, and she has to grow up, forced to grow up. So, seeing that her friends are completely immature, it's kind of like, real people. It's like people who you thought were like could be close friends for life from high school, and even on the best of circumstances, you might have stayed in contact maybe one or two of them. But the cliques that you had in high school, after high school, you look back and it's like, wow, they were just ignoramuses, shallow. Or even worse, they are stuck in that peak in high school. They peaked in high school and they couldn't get over that. They didn't grow or mature. And she sees her friends being so shallow. Don't drop the whole this guard or immaturity or whatever. Or just see, her see beyond themselves and seeing that Buffy is going through it. Even though she wants to tell them what's really going on, she knows she can't because they wouldn't believe her. Later on there was a complete vampire attack in their school, but they just can't just sit still for a second and sympathize and console her. She's lost a dear friend, but they all abandoned her. Her friends, what she thought her friends, didn't really consider them, isn't really her friends. So she then tries to just play it off, try to go to this school dance, try to be normal. Lothos sends his coven to attack the school, and then after she gets dumped by her boyfriend, who supposedly they both have been in love, he ends up going out with one of her clique girlfriends. But then Luke Perry shows up. Pretty sure this every little girl's fantasy, going to a school dance, and then Luke Perry shows up to choose her to dance with. And right as they dance, the vampire shows up and starts attacking. And one of the stupid girlfriends invites them in because they're technically seniors. So Buffy and Pike, which ironically in the TV show there'll be a character named Spike. Great character, by the way. But they end up being the primary two fending off these vampires. Pike had to kill his own best friend. And Buffy ends up killing Amerlin. And of course, one of the most iconic, considered the most iconic death scenes in movies, where Paul Rubin does this. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, is stated behind the scenes because Paul Rubin, I'm about to call him Mr. Bean. No, crap. Pee Wee Herman. Golly. Pee Wee Herman, very funny guy. Paul Rubin does this like drawn out death scene, and it's played up for laughs, and they just let the camera roll, and they included it in the scene because it's like, this is too funny, you got to keep it in, where he just won't just die immediately. It's just like he's hamming it up, and we see the actors just looking, not breaking character, but you kind of see Rucker Howard as he's playing his little violin. He just staring over and kind of looks like he's about to crack a smile, but he's trying to maintain as Paul Rubin was like kicks the and then he finally dies. It's like, golly. And that's played better than some argue. Some might argue this was played better compared to something like Deadpool 2, where, well, I think some people might find it funny. I find it a little funny, but Paul Rubin, some actors who can do comedy well knows when to cut the joke. Because, most comedians can draw out a joke, but wiser comedians know when to draw it out and then cut it at the right time. It's all about timing when it comes to comedy. Everybody knows this. Ryan Reynolds, when he did that, it's like death scene in Deadpool 2, definitely he's a smart, not comedian, but he knows how to make things funny. But he, in that particular case, drew it out a little bit longer than it needed to be. Where, to a lot of people, some can argue where he should have cut it off the joke, but I think most people will agree that it was kind of dragged out a little longer than it was necessary for the joke. While here, Rubin knew when to cut it. He knew exactly when to cut it. It was drawn out, but he knew exactly where to cut it off. Where that's where the joke ends. Because it was like what 2-3 minutes, maybe. If it dragged out to darn near 4 minutes, then it would have probably been okay. It's not funny anymore. But anyway, that's when Lothos tries to entrance Buffy again, but she recalls the final words of Merrick, which breaks her out of the trance because he tells her, "Be your own Slayer. Don't try to be like what the other Slayers have done," because it's kind of like the Avatar, or in My Hero Academia, the one who carries one for all. Each hero with that mantle has done something different with it. It was kind of like Spider-Man with Miles Morales. Don't try to be Peter Parker. Be your own Spider-Man. Or, like, speaking of Spider-Man, like Tom Holland's Spider-Man in No Way Home, where Happy has to express to Peter, don't try to be Iron Man. People expect you to be, because you're like trained under Iron Man, they expect you to be like Iron Man. Don't be like don't be like Tony. Even Tony can't be Tony. Just be your own thing. Take what you learn and apply it in your own way. It's kind of like everybody been to public school or just had the proper education. Don't try to do it like how the teachers have learned it, but do it, with your own unique flair that makes it. It's like, or like any martial art. Don't try to be Bruce Lee, because only Bruce Lee is Bruce Lee. You take what the similar martial arts that Bruce Lee learned and apply it with your own flair to make it your own unique spin. And that's how Buffy took on all those vampires and defeated Lothos in a duel, and finally took him out. And this is where the whole principal, played by Stephen Root, this is where he got grating to me, because he started handing out like detention slips. I know it's supposed to be played for laughs, but this is was not funny to me. It's like, dude, you're killing the scene at this point. No pun intended, and I ain't trying to make a joke about it. He's terrible in this. I guess that was a point, but there's ways of doing it right. But this is like, completely inept, trying to be hip and all those. I get it, but it was not working. It's like, dude, get real. God, like I said, people don't react to the things that need proper reactions from. You just witness vampires. I think it deserves like a more of a reaction than just like, oh my God, we really went through it today. It's like, I was like, stop it. Anyway, after this all ended and they took out all the vampires, Buffy hops a ride with Pike on his motorcycle, and they ride off into the sunrise. And that's where the movie ends. Still an enjoyable film. Now, I have my certain issues here and there. Some of the writing isn't like tight, but overall it's still enjoyable. One of the most classic 90s films of all time, and a breakout character that, like I said, is one of the most impeccable female characters of all time. Buffy the Vampire Slayer the character deserves her flowers. Will be remembered in infamy thanks to Chrissy Swanson and Sarah Michelle Gellar, who really catapulted this character in the eyes of millions, if not billions. She's up there in terms of Princess Leia, Sarah Connor, Ripley, Xena the Warrior Princess, even like Wonder Woman, in terms of very well crafted character. There isn't a girl boss. There isn't putting down male characters. She even gets saved from by male characters here, and there's like a balance here that we used to know about, where nobody having to put somebody else down to prop up somebody else. Everybody gets their time in the sun here, and there wasn't no inept male lead here. There's inept males and females in this film, but there's also competent males and females as well. So it's just like, God, I miss the days when Hollywood knew this. Anyway, that was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Fun film, still worthy of like a good watch. I suggest, like, if you have young girls, introduce her to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the TV show, and have them read the books and the comics and stuff like that, because this is like a type of female character that deserves to be looked up to. None of the stuff that Disney's been putting out in the past handful of years, after 2001 or 2, we've been inundated with a lot of girl boss characters. If you want like something like young girls to look up to, if it was me, if I had daughters, or ever have daughters, I preferred sons, but if I do end up having a daughter, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Princess Leia, Padme, Ahsoka in a lot of cases, Ripley, Xena Warrior Princess, Sarah Connor, Wonder Woman. In some cases, I gotta be mindful because some Wonder Woman comics is like a little, but in any case, those will probably be like the prime examples of females that deserves to be admired and is properly done. Princess Fiona is another good one. Lydia Dietz is another good one in terms of great female characters that are not girl bosses. I might do like a TikTok video about this at some point. I don't know if I remember. I'll do it. But it's just, this is like, this is like a well crafted character. I love Buffy. Very well done. Despite Joss Whedon's issues, he's made memorable characters that will be remembered forever. Anyway, I'll see you guys a little bit later, probably around like 8-ish. I gotta deal with some business first, but I got 2 more movies I wanted to review because I want to try to get some reviews out early because I'll be pretty busy this weekend. So I'm not sure if I'll have like the energy to fully commit to a review in the coming days. I might still play a few video games here and there, like maybe some Marvel Rivals. If I'm feeling like, get the energy for it. But I will see you guys soon. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Or do you have like a solid female kind of character that, isn't a girl boss that you think like young girls should idolize, that look up to, that has a proper representation of female heroes that young girls should look up to, that aren't girl bosses. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Take care.